Hello everyone, we finally fixed the sound and starting with Mike Stellium7 from Spain, and it's me, Philipp Druzhinen from Moscow, Russia. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good. I'm here with my favorite shirt.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, wanted to start also with the joke that I did today on Instagram, but you know, I guess we're gonna finish with it. Also, it was a nice experiment concerning that you know that Earth consists of majorly water, as what they tell us, right? So it has to have a lot of vapor in the atmosphere, right? And I was experimenting with fog on the field and showing how it's easy to prove the shape of the Earth. But anyways, let's remember what was the last progress that we were chatting about like 3 months ago. I think you were sending it to some certain lab, and since then you were talking with those fellows that were trying to help you with this lab. And then certain finish of that all came recently, right?
Yeah, well, finish, I'm not sure if that's the right word for it, but it definitely has come to a conclusion of some sort. But yeah, so for those who don't know, I've been doing research on what I call petrified organs, heart stones specifically, that are rocks that I've identified have a reoccurring pattern that can be found, and it matches heart anatomy far too frequently and far too specifically to be random chance. So I've made a lot of videos on the subject, and yeah, I guess it was about 4 months ago, a guy named Harry Hubbard reached out to me and sent me an email saying that he had come across my videos from a friend of his who had recommended them.
That was an email or comment?
An email. Yeah, he sent me an email, and he offered to do some laboratory analysis on the stones. He told me that a friend of his was the owner of a prestigious laboratory in New Mexico, and they were both geology buffs. Harry Hubbard has a huge stone collection, rock collection, and has been interested in geology and archaeology and all kinds of other things for many, many years. And he said that he wasn't familiar with what I was presenting, and neither was this other gentleman. And so they offered to.
What do you mean wasn't familiar? If he saw your videos, how did he contact you then?
No, they were familiar with what I was claiming, but they hadn't run across stones like this, or so he claimed, and were very curious about them and wanted to do some laboratory analysis. So I thought it was pretty interesting. He left his contact information, and a few days later I called him up, and we had about a 40-minute conversation, and you know, he asked me a bunch of questions, and the first question he asked was if he could record the call, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I immediately was like, okay, well, sure, why not? I have nothing to hide. I've been doing videos on this topic anyway. So, and I actually, in the video that I put out before he contacted me, even said if anyone knows of anyone who has access to a laboratory, it would be awesome to do some testing on these stones. And so I would have been a fool not to take him up on the offer. So he gave me the information to his buddy who was in New Mexico with the lab. And after I spoke with Harry, I called this other gentleman, Frank, and spoke to him for nearly an hour. And he was incredibly knowledgeable, had just so much experience in a variety of different fields, and was well-spoken and clearly well-educated. So I thought, wow, this is potentially an awesome thing.
So you were talking about his qualifications or on the subject? I don't get it.
No, he didn't really offer up information on his qualifications, but I knew that he had been running the lab for almost 40 years, since 1975. And I did a little bit of, searching online just to see what I could come up with about both of them. Harry Hubbard was a YouTuber. He's had a channel for years, and he does a lot of stuff on ancient artifacts and coins, and has been involved with the excavation of some caves in Illinois, where they unearthed a number of artifacts that he claims, I think, were from Alexander the Great, and they've found Egyptian artifacts and lots. I'm not really very familiar with his work. I saw a couple of videos that he did on.
I smell pseudoscience.
You smell pseudoscience, maybe.
I mean, how can they find Greek artifacts in Illinois in the cave? I mean.
Yeah, I don't know that. I'm not sure what the narrative is on it. Honestly, I didn't go looking into it. I watched a few videos that he did on the subject of the CCP and communism, and the infiltration of communism in the US that goes back many decades. And he was referring to a lot of
witch hunter. So he is a witch hunter, because communism in USA is a witch hunting process that was started by McCarthy, I believe. Do you know that?
No, I didn't.
So that's
I remember the era of, I mean, I don't remember it firsthand, but the era of McCarthyism and going after all the commies. Yeah. It's in lots of movies as well. Yeah.
That's when communists suddenly became neocons. Now neocons are ruling your country, by the way.
Well, he would definitely agree with that statement, I think, probably. His videos are very interesting to watch. He's incredibly knowledgeable. He's got a lot of primary first edition texts, many signed, and you can tell he's read them multiple times because there's different colors of highlighting and underlining, and he's what I would call an old school truther. He's not just like, what does Google say about this? He's going to the people who've written the material themselves.
How many subs does it have?
I think it's under 10,000, somewhere around 10,000. Okay. And so after watching his videos, I thought, okay, this guy, he seems like he's genuinely interested in what I've done and what I've been presenting. And the story about how he found me was organic, in the sense that a woman who was a massage therapist who knew him and knew his interests was a sub of my channel and had seen a number of videos and was really excited about the things that I was showing. So when she told him about it and he checked out the videos, that was when he contacted his friend in New Mexico, and they both decided, well, let's see if we can get him to send some stones and we'll do an analysis on them. So I spoke with Harry, and then a few days later, I talked to Frank on the phone, and I didn't ask him to record the call. I would have liked to, because we covered a lot of ground in an hour, and he told me stories of all kinds of different stories about different artifacts that he had worked on and the different techniques that were required in order to do the authentication of those artifacts, and that he had he's one of the foremost experts in jade antiquities in the world, and has a very close working relationship with the Chinese government. And they've allowed him a carte blanche to travel anywhere in the country if it's, you know, for these studies, if it's related to his research. And he's got the record for the most expensive jade artifact ever sold. I mean, it wasn't his artifact. He did the authentication on the sale, and that was a $7 million artifact that he authenticated. And he told me about making use of particle accelerators for his research, and that is extremely cost prohibitive in the States, because it can cost about $500,000 for a half day just to do these analyses.
Just to rent this thing, right?
Yeah, and the Chinese government lets him use them for free. So yeah,
they should actually also surprise you, because, you know, witch hunt, communists, China, you know, no logic. Actually, I brought this.
I think you sound like a conspiracy theorist to me.
No.
You got my head on the chopping block. Thanks, yeah. Thanks for that.
Look at those cards over here. I smelled this witch hunt all the way. By the way, I was actually.
Well, I was suspicious from the get-go, and then when I looked into Harry Hubbard, I was still suspicious, and then when I looked into Frank Aon, I was suspicious, but I decided that, you know, to give him the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, there's another thing which I cover in the video that I did. Well, I'll come back to the video in a second, but Frank Aon gave a speech at the Explorers Club. So before I called him, I listened to that speech, which was over an hour long, and it's quite the speech. It's quite a go through he does of these different artifacts and historical events, and clearly a scholar. And so I was impressed, but then I started looking into the Explorers Club as well a bit, and that's an organization that's extremely fishy, unless you're a NASA fanboy,
or you get some budgets and expensive devices for free, you know.
Yeah, it strikes me as an old boys club for the ultra elite. They're the foremost explorers club in the world, and have a whole lot of astronauts on their roster as honorary members. You know, the who's who of the top of their club members are people like Bezos, and Elon Musk gave a speech there. Prince Philipp, nice guy. Who else? Did I say Jeff Bezos? He's their honorary chair currently. So right off the bat, I was like, okay, this is a sketchy organization.
You know, suddenly everybody starts to be a space corporation out of nowhere, even if you were sold.
And doing it better than NASA ever did with shoestring budgets.
You sold pennies, and once you thought, oh, I'm a space company, right? I should go to space.
Exploring black holes if they're panties.
Yeah. You put some blue dick on a CGI, and go all the way.
Yeah, it's laughable at
So,
best.
so he sold you his qualification, and you were pretty much
Well,
impressed and never thought about any problems, right?
I wouldn't say that was the case. I would say that I was suspicious from the beginning and throughout. And after speaking to both of them, I didn't feel like it was a completely blatant hit piece that was being set up, but I was suspicious. But I decided to give them the benefit of the doubt. And the reason for that was I was under the impression that they were going to do a laboratory analysis. I was promised a bound laboratory report, and I figured even if the conclusions come back completely negative, and this guy is saying that there's nothing to what this guy, what I'm claiming, that at the very least I would have the data, and I could take that data elsewhere and examine it with others. And I have some friends, one friend in particular is a PhD in molecular chemistry, and
It's not only chemistry. You do it in medical. So, yeah, when you get one doctor diagnosis, you can go to another, cross-check it.
Right. So exactly, and then repeat the testing if necessary, and see whether other laboratories come up with the same information.
Yeah, what method did they use? What, amplification or spectrometry or whatever they were using? Everything was going to be listed, and at least the questions on what they're trying to answer certainly should be listed in the front of this research, as what we usually did in criminology when we're sending some stuff to experts. We usually put the questions, what we expect him to answer, actually. And they put those questions on all the paper, right? Because they're supposed to be answering the question, not doing some, whatever scientific stuff.
Yeah, and what happened was very different from what I had anticipated was going to happen, because
by the way, did they discuss the question? What did they want? What they wanted from you as a result? Did you message them? What do you want them to know?
In my conversation with Harry Hubbard, he asked me a number of questions. I asked him a few. I was curious what kind of testing was going to be performed, and I just want to know what the plan was. And but he asked me about my theories and the heart stones and where I was finding them, and a number of different things.
No, I've heard it all in the video that you posted. But did they actually ask you, what do you want them to give you back?
Did I? No, I did not specifically say, what are you going to give me? I asked them what kinds of things they were going to be doing. And the thing is, I'm out of my realm of expertise here. So if I started what I wanted most, and I said this to both of them in both of our conversations, was a spectroscopy analysis, also known as spectrometry. XRF, X-ray fluorescence is what it's called. And basically what this is some extremely expensive machine that I think, I'm not sure if they hit it with light or with radiation or what, but radiation. Things bounce back, and they can tell what the constituent elements are in the sample based on what isn't reflected back, I think is how it works. So they get, it's like, they get a line of the spectrum, and you get these little lines of things that are missing, and that's what was absorbed by the radiation.
Microscope magnification, did they discuss it with you?
Yeah, they discussed microscopy. They discussed different chemical analyses. They talked about using different acids, bases, those kinds of things to dissolve portions of the stone and determine what the makeup was.
I didn't hear them listing that microscopy pictures anywhere, and you said they didn't send them to you, right?
Well, Aeon's analysis, he described, he talked about using 3 different microscopes and 2 loops, and yeah, he was doing analysis, and based on his vast knowledge, he just knew what he was looking at in the microscope and determined what the mineral composition was by eye. Apparently, that's my take on things, and he didn't make any mention of the power of the microscopes, what magnification he used, and
this is, for example, this is the ash, so-called volcanic ash microscopy. You can see the scale over here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can see the magnification,
right.
And there's two pictures of the same research. And this is the clay. So this two of those shots prove that ash is not clay, right? And ash is not, for example, the cause of mud flood, because some people claim, like what we have on Canary Islands today, that ash could be like, mud flood. I showed them these pictures, and I think that proves everything. So this is different.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I was expecting them to give you these shots also, because we have to see what is inside of those rocks, right?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Let me just. There we go. I'm just gonna. Haven't worn glasses very much in my life, so it kind of give me headaches when when I start to wear them. Yeah. So as far as the microscopy goes, he makes mention of it, but he provided no pictures whatsoever. I
didn't see even describing what he mentions. He just like touches it slightly, like a coincidental touch of what he said.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything about what microscope, what magnification.
On what
nothing.
Picture
provided no pictures.
On picture number 1, you see this. On picture number 2, you see this. This is supposed to be in the research anyways. Like, if he didn't do it at all, that's the reason why he doesn't have it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have entertained this whole thing if they hadn't promised me a bound laboratory report. And after the fact, I was looking at it, I was just going, what is this? And so I went online and just looked up a few different sample lab reports. I did a master's thesis when I did my chiropractic studies, so I know how much work goes into a master's thesis. It's it's a 1-year project, and mine was 40 pages long, and we had 7 pages of references that were all published studies. They weren't just like books, that I copied lines from. It was very in-depth, and that was just a literature study. That wasn't even an actual study that involved some kind of an experiment or laboratory analysis. So when I looked into those things to see what to expect, it looked basically exactly like my master's thesis, except with numbers and data, and then an analysis of that data and a breakdown of what it means or what it could mean. So basically what I got was a grandiose opinion from him, and claims about the stones that I sent with no reflections on the research that I'd done or what I'd presented. And when I spoke to him on the phone, and I'm referring to the laboratory guy at this point, I asked him if he had seen any of my videos, and he said he hadn't. And then he went on to talk about how he likes to remain impartial, and he doesn't want to, have his judgment clouded by preconceived ideas about what he's doing analysis on. And I thought, okay, well, that's fair enough. And I thought that, I thought it would be done differently than it was done.
Yeah, pretty much a lot of questions after you get all this information from them, and this attitude that they, presented, which was totally, I think it was destroying of your, how do you call it, inspiration. Something similar with what you had with this Simon Dent case, when a bunch of people started messaging you.
Yeah,
You
I
should
just felt
go.
like I encountered Simon Dan, but like the next level up. That was,
Yeah.
because Simon Dan did the exact same thing. He looked at one of my videos. He probably skipped through it. I don't even know if he watched the whole thing. He picked out a couple things that he disagreed with and used those things to completely, like, as an excuse to cast out all of the research without addressing any of it.
That's
At
just
one point,
another crazy mother.
yeah, at one point he put up my list of coincidences when it comes to the mountain Mont Go, which is now up over 40. But at the time that he did that interview, I mean, now it's over 50. But at the time he did the interview, it was like 40 something. And he picked number 5 on the list. He misrepresented number 5, which I could easily disprove his representation of number 5. And then he said, and because that's so ridiculous, I'm not even going to bother with the rest. And he threw him out. So I felt like that was the same thing.
That's what they do. That's what their style is. These reaction channels. By the way, that last video that was taken down for the copyright issues, I don't actually know what copyright issues did you have, but because it was a pure 100% reaction video, which was not for any commercial purposes, presented, and you didn't take their content for this. It just was a representation of what your opinion about them and your reaction to what they were doing actually, and according to the evidence that you have put on the content list, right? You were editing the evidence, and
right. Yeah. See, that was that video you're talking about is a 3-hour video that I worked 2 months on, and the reason it's so long is because Harry Hubbard provided me with the audio file that he recorded when we spoke, and he provided me with the audio file when he and Frank spoke to review my findings, or to review Frank's findings. And so I had just right there 1 hour and 20 minutes worth of material that I didn't want to edit. I didn't want to like take parts out because I thought, oh, this is maybe a little boring or people won't be interested in this. I decided it's going to be full disclosure. I'm just going to, every word that they said, including all of our email exchanges, I just put it out there unedited. But then I also added commentary and I added rebuttal along the way. So that's why it ended up being 3 hours. And it was well liked. When the video was taken down, it had 350 likes and 1 dislike, which was Harry Hubbard's. And I used a bit of footage from his channel that because I felt like these guys were gatekeepers. I didn't feel like they were fair at all in doing what they said they were going to do. The analysis turned out to just basically be this guy's opinion. The letter that he wrote in light of the research that I presented, the empirical evidence that I presented, it was extremely condescending. And it was basically, this is my list of qualifications. I am an authority on these things, believe what I say, and didn't address any of my research at all. And then the silly thing about it is what he claimed about the stones was exactly what I had been rejecting from the very first video that I made on the subject. And I've given many reasons and many examples of why I've rejected that. And you can see there, I'm talking about on the screen, I'm talking about the tapering in. There's this reoccurring pattern, but it goes way beyond just the overall shape. It goes in, the blood vessel openings, that twisting that the heart is doing right now. If you look at many of these stones on the bottom, they've got this twisting. It almost looks like a propeller. And when you start to look at the official story, they're saying that these are lumps of clay that were compressed in sedimentary layers and then were on their way to becoming metamorphic rock due to the great amount of pressure. And then through tectonic activity, the mountains are formed and some of these layers are exposed, and then pieces break out of those layers, and then these these lumps of clay, which are now hardened, are liberated, and then through river erosion and rain and abrasion, they take on magically these shapes. And if I had just found one or a few like this, I could understand it. But I've gone out live and in the space of 10 or 15 minutes, found 10 that are exhibiting many of the features that I presented in the videos.
I think
have
that's
a
the reason
heart
why
stone.
they contacted you, because you had a lot of them and they wanted to make money on that. You know, that's what I think about first.
Well, make money on it how? What do you mean?
If it would be worth it, right? If the risk is worth it, like if they have to risk the reputation, they of course regret. They will not watch your videos at all, right? They will not answer any questions in their research. So this is just like, you know, wasting of time, both yours and theirs, right? And they like seem to be pissed off that you like, you know, contacting them, asking questions that they said you before. It's not hard stones. Why are you asking me questions again? You know, be sure to contact Harry. He told you this, all this stuff. I don't know anything about that. So this is like,
everything was really friendly with both of them in our phone conversations. And then we had some exchanges after the fact. And then once the stones arrived, Harry let me know, and he wanted to pay me for the shipping. He offered to pay me for the stones, and I didn't want any compensation for the stones. I just wanted the lab report. So later on, they start.
You should have sold them. You should have sold them those stones.
Well, then they could have made it look like I was out for money, and that was why I was doing this whole thing.
Just
and I was
for $1, just for $1, man.
Yeah.
They wanted papers.
Well,
they wanted papers.
Originally, I had thought, you know, I have so many of them. If you see my videos, you know. So it wasn't that I necessarily, there was one in particular that I wanted. I thought maybe I'll ask for this one back. But I had thought, wow, these guys are doing this thing that I've been trying to get done. I initially reached out to some of the universities in Alicante, but this was right at the beginning of the whole virus thing. And the schools all closed, and then after that it was a summer break, and then everything was like super slow getting going again. So I never really got anywhere with any labs, and I had planned to do CAT scans on them, and I ran into trouble with that as well, because the different places where they have CAT scan machines, they rejected my requests because they only do CAT scans on human specimens, you know, for health purposes. So that was a challenge. And eventually I found a veterinarian that had a CAT scan machine that I was able to get them done. So that's something I'll go over in the next video, because I do have, I might, if I can find the footage, I might actually show a little bit of it. So yeah, so I was like thrilled that they were going to do this research. And when the stones got there, it took him 2 or 3 weeks to do the work. And then when I got the response back from Harry initially, he was like, "They're not what you thought, but they're even more exciting in my opinion." I was like, okay, wow, what could be more exciting than petrified organs lying everywhere? That's a pretty exciting topic. How could it be more exciting than that? And so when I waited I don't know, a couple days or something for his next communication, and that was a private letter that Frank, the lab owner, sent to him, with just a little overview of his findings. And that was where he talked about microscopy, and he started talking about the whole, I call it rolling on floor lumping theory now, ROFL, because it makes zero sense to me, and it can't be reproduced. It's just a theory, and it's conjecture on the part of geologists, because they're talking about things that are happening in a time scale of hundreds of millions of years that they can't witness. The stones are already stones, so they're not watching it occur.
Exactly.
So and there was no experiment involved. The only experiment I thought was going to happen was going to be something like a spectroscopy machine. But instead, what I got in this letter was, you know, I looked at it through microscopes, and I have all of this vast anatomical knowledge, and so I can tell you for a variety of reasons why they're not heart stones. And then he listed those reasons, and it all sounds very you know, convincing to somebody who hasn't studied the crap out of this stuff and who doesn't know Latin, and it doesn't know the medical terminology and what do these different words mean when they give you a long phrase like polycalcitic conglomerate cobbles, right? Most people, that's just going to, like, their eyes are going to glaze over when they hear something like that. But as a chiropractor, I had to study a lot of that kind of terminology. So you can, you know, figure out very easily. It just means multiple calcites that are in a binder rock of things clumped together, and, you know, they're conglomerate cobblestones. That's basically was his conclusion. Yeah, so microscopy, and he did some chemical analysis as well. He dissolved portions of the stone, but there was no analysis of what remained or what, you know, what was taken away. Just his microscopy and you know, his knowledge. So I've had medical doctors reach out to me who are just absolutely blown away. I shared it in the I shared a couple of letters in the video of a medical doctor whose name I won't mention because he's kind of nervous about all this stuff. But he said the stuff I've shown has absolutely blown him away and is undeniable. I've had nurses, not just nurses, but nurses who work in surgery, so they're assisting at the operation table, also reach out to me. One recently. So I shared those anecdotal communications in the video, which was taken down. And I've since had communication with Harry Hubbard, and I won't go into the details because I'll share them later, perhaps. But there's some unresolved stuff that I can't go into yet. We'll see how that resolves. But I appealed the copyright strike on fair use grounds because it's clearly fair use. Even the portions from his channel that I used were perfectly on topic and were illustrating the points that I was making in my analysis of all of these exchanges. So yep. He doesn't have a leg to stand on when it comes to that.
It's like he has like a week or something to sue you right now.
I think YouTube said 10 to 14 days. It took 2 or 3 days for them to review it because it was a holiday weekend. And I just found out this morning that it's gone back to him, and then he can either, start litigation if he chooses, or drop the subject.
For 14 calendar days. I remember that because I always
calendar days.
Yeah, calendar days.
Yeah, so 10 working days.
Calendar, not working, calendar.
Yeah.
It's like both weekends are counted too, right? So 14 days exactly from the time that you press appeal button, they received it immediately without any processing. 14 days. He has to provide it.
And, it's been mirrored out there, and it can be found, but it's not on YouTube currently.
It's no problem to make it a non-copyright anyway, so we can I worry about what he's gonna sue you about, what's gonna be in that,
I don't know. There hasn't been talk of litigation, but
what is his claims actually, because if he doesn't provide that, nobody's gonna take that legal note from him,
right?
And he's going to be taken down. He's going to be taken down, not you. If he doesn't do it in 14 calendar days, man.
It was never my intention to get into some kind of a battle, but when this came back, if it had come back and there had been a proper analysis done with data provided and microscopy images and some analysis from some device or whatever, and his conclusions were what they were, I would have accepted that. I still would have probably done a rebuttal video, but I would have then had that data to go on, somewhere else to try and do further research.
Now, didn't he say that you can go with this stuff like
Well,
and check it?
that came later. I'll go. That came later in it. So the first letter came back, which was this summary, and then later a formalized. Oh, that was what happened. So the first letter came, and then Harry sent me the audio file of their conversation, and that was extremely revealing to me, and also irritating, because there were a lot of insinuations. There were a lot of little anecdotal stories that were told of all the different ways that I could have easily misled and fooled myself because I was so attached to this cute idea, but there was no substance to it, and I should just, trust his authority.
They tried to get personal on you, just to, intimidate you.
Yeah, and then they were giving little stories about snake oil salesmen and people who were in it for the money and were willingly and unintentionally misleading people in order to profit in different ways. There were all these stories that they told, and it just, the more I listened to it and the more I reviewed the text, it just made me angry. And so I ended up sitting on it for about 2 or 3 weeks, trying to decide how to respond, because I was like, I knew that any rebuttal that I was going to mount was going to take me a long time to do properly, because there was so much data between the hour and 20 minutes of our phone conversations and all of the information that I would have to share to show that the things that were being claimed were not accurate in relationship to these stones at all. Every single point that he brought up, I debunked in that video.
That's why I asked, thoroughly. If they didn't watch your videos, it was a waste of time. That's why I asked that.
You mean my rebuttal video?
No. I just asked if he watched your video before.
Yeah.
Did he contact you via comment?
Well, Harry told me that he had seen a couple, which when I spoke to him, he said he hadn't seen any. So right off the bat, I was a little suspicious of him, because he had seen something, and he had seen enough to know that I thought they were hard. So he wasn't doing a completely blind, impartial analysis of the subject, as he made very clear in his analysis, because the majority of his analysis was anatomical, right? Which I was not anticipating whatsoever. So he made no mention in my 1-hour conversation with him that he had worked under 3 different pathologists in 3 different hospitals, that he had 4 different master's degrees, and he had a tremendous amount of not only anatomical knowledge at the surgical table with these pathologists, but he was also analyzing specimens and doing microscopy. Oh, great. All well and good. If he had told me that, I would have been like, wow, that's awesome. He's got even more knowledge on these specific subjects. So that will hopefully help him in, identifying what's plain to see for many people. But he, what was I saying? He, so the anatomical analysis was never mentioned. No mention of his background in anatomy, and so I was kind of shocked that became the cornerstone of his debunk when it came to all of my research.
Like I've seen those hearts before, and they look different, and these look like cobblestones, and that's it. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And
the only footage was those petrified hearts that he was giving you.
I got 3 pictures that he took from literally the first line of image searches on Google. That was the data. That and his opinion.
He's supposed to have
because he's got such a.
He's supposed to have his own books. He's supposed to have some reference to something, some research.
It was a scientific mockery. I'm not just some crackpot with a crazy idea. I've got a ton of empirical evidence supporting my stuff, and it's not like a blob of a rock that I'm claiming is a heart that doesn't look anything like a heart. I've demonstrated chambers. I've demonstrated blood vessels. I've demonstrated pericardium, the outer fatty layer, reoccurring, you know, shapes. It's just, so anyway.
Yeah,
So then I wrote him
videos, and you should have cross-checked him if he knows anything about your videos. That would be the specimen, because you know all this
like
stuff,
that rock I'm showing right there in that video. That's got a chunk taken out of it. You can immediately see the fracture, right? And these rocks are continuous. They're unbroken. That one's also fractured. So as soon as there's any kind of a flaw in the rock, you can see it right away. So the unbroken ones are, you know, that one again, you can see. I've got some, you know, they show their flaws, and they show the blood vessel openings. This one here, you can see that harp shape. They come in all shapes and sizes. It's the same theme repeated over and over again. And, you know, to call this you know, I call it humiliated clay lump theory now, because
yeah, and you're not claiming all the rocks like a crazy professor. All the rocks are hard, right?
No.
This is not
hard. The other organs are there. I've got a ton of kidneys. You know, livers and lungs have lobes. They literally have sections in them. So, you know, it makes a whole lot of sense that those would cleave upon lobe lines and not look anything like the original organ. That one is, you can see the bottom, the iron ore is caked on. So there was a fracture, and then like it seeped blood, you know. This one is also broken on the bottom. That's showing a change. That's showing the ventricle right there. But then when I set it down, you'll see the isthmus and the opening. Pause it there. Oh, without my hand. There's the opening right there on the upper left is to the pulmonary arteries, and it's even got the space called the isthmus that goes between them. I have 4 bigger stones that are showing the chambers. They have the openings to the papillary, the pulmonary arteries with the isthmus. 3 of them have the little remains of the papillary muscles. There's so many anatomical correlations. It's mind-boggling. And Alex just said he's got a lot of heart. No, he means I've got a lot of hearts, plural, but not a lot of heart.
Yeah, they wanted some of your hearts.
He made this shirt for me because he's such a NASA lover himself. Anyone who doesn't know how great NASA is should really go to Conspiracy Music Guru and watch all of his NASA videos, because nobody showcases NASA as beautifully as he does.
Yeah, he should get an Oscar for his CGI filming. Yeah.
CGI? What do you mean? CGI?
Best video effects Oscar.
Oh yeah, so, yeah. Maybe he'll get an.
Anyways, guys, I don't want us to sound like some crybabies, like we've been, you know, pretty much disappointed or somebody. We're just, you know, discussing what was real and what was supposed to be and didn't happen, right? So I mean,
yeah. So then I finally wrote back to them, and I at first I was like, oh, I'm gonna like hit him on this point and that point, you know. And finally, I was just like, I'm just gonna write a simple email and say, hey, look, you know, you guys promised me a laboratory analysis. I'm still waiting for it. You know, I mean, it was longer than that, obviously, but that was it in a nutshell. I'm like, I'm still waiting for the data that a proper laboratory analysis would yield. You know,
because if you bring these papers to some other expert, they're gonna laugh at you, man. You're gonna say, what
totally. It was, yeah. So yeah, and so then the same day, I received an email from Frank Aon, the lab guy. And he was basically just saying, look, you know, I did this for free. I didn't receive a penny for any of this work. I did it as a favor to Harry Hubbard. And, you know, you can talk to him about any misconceptions about what was or wasn't going to happen. Fair enough. You know, he never said carte blanche that, you know, I'm going to do spectroscopy. We discussed it a bunch. And then he went on to talk about how he gets free access to particle accelerators. And then I got Harry Hubbard telling me he's got anything and everything he needs, and him saying the same. And so it never occurred to me that like, oh, well, I'm not going to do the spectroscopy because it's too expensive. And then he basically said that he didn't do it because there was no reason to, and it was cost prohibitive.
So that reminds me.
What? You know, they're the ones who reached out to me. You know?
This reminds me in the good old scammery, what the real estate scammers do in Russia. One part of them just, you know, telling you what you search this internet site, you found this real estate, you know, you want to lease, right? You want to go there, you want to check it out before you pay, and you call this number. Some pretty girl answers you and says like, yeah, of course, come on to our office, we're gonna show you a bunch of good apartments, good houses, whatever you want, just come to our office. You go to office, and then they just try to sell you, yeah, give you these addresses, go there, go there, go there, check it out, and all is just wonderful. But they are not going with you. They're just giving you addresses. You go there, you find out that nothing actually is there. No owner at home. Nobody showing you opening the door and stuff like this. Just, you know, ridiculous mistakes that ordinary real estate agent won't let him do, because he's a professional, right? So if he sends you to some place, somebody's supposed to open doors, somebody's supposed to show you the house, but nobody's there. You just ring in the doorbell, nobody opens, and you pay them already. You return to them and say, we didn't tell you you're gonna, you know, move in. We said we're gonna show you the place, and you paid us for that. Look at this.
Yeah, we were honest.
Yeah, and you paid them a bunch of money for that, you know, just for zero information and for wasting time.
Right.
That's how scammers do.
Well, all I can say is not all laboratory analyses are created equal. So he finished by basically insinuating that I was in it for the money and that I was trying to get money out of them, and then accused me of having an unfortunate malady of entitlement, and then told me never to contact him again. Any further problems I have, I can take up with Harry Hubbard. So Harry Hubbard's email came the next day, and that was 3 pages long, and it was completely scathing. And he took my little half a page email and line by line wrote a long paragraph with each one, and just like it was unfriendly, it was scathing, and both of their responses just struck me as being extreme and vicious, considering up to that point our communication had been positive. I sent the stones, I got the responses from them, and then I sat on it for a couple of weeks because I was like, what am I going to do and what am I going to say? And then Harry Hubbard was mocking me because I was so slow to respond and that I was on vacation, and I was, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not on his clock. And
it's your fault.
And after they did, it's my fault. And after they did what they did, I you know, didn't have a whole lot of respect for them. There's a big one. Yeah, so that's what the video is about. And even though you kind of know the whole story, I guarantee you it is extremely entertaining. It's worth the 3 hours. Even my friend Alex, who can't stand to hear me talk because I talk too much, said it didn't feel like 3 hours. So that's about the best compliment I could receive.
You know, actually I have a Telegram channel set up for uncensored things that were, you know, post a bunch of videos actually which are censored on YouTube, like war type of videos. I'm telling real things what's going on right now. I might, you know, upload this video too to Telegram, so it will be there forever. Nobody will delete it, trust me.
Yeah, it's already been mirrored. Things don't disappear on the internet, and so the strike it struck me as petty initially. Like I said, there's a little bit more to it that I want to work out before I say anything about it. And so one way or another, I'm sure it'll get back up. Hopefully it'll get back up with the view count and the like count, because
Oh, don't
It
worry about that.
was well loved. And
Don't worry about that.
no, it's actually what I care most about is the comments, and that's
yeah.
That's what I said to Harry is yeah.
If they restored everything, it will be just like it was, but it probably won't be viewed as much as it would be because it was off for several days. You know.
Yeah, it loses the momentum of being a new release and everything. Yeah, it's a drag, but. You know what? I didn't expect a lot of people to watch it. People nowadays don't have time for 3-hour videos. In fact, I posted a 6-minute video today that was well liked, that was made by my friend Howard. He made a little 4-part series covering my research, and I posted the link in the liner notes to the video that I mirrored of his. So I'm going to start doing that. There's a lot of my videos, you know, I've been told by many people are too long, but I haven't been making the videos for larger audiences. I've been focusing on the science aspect of it. And it's very complex stuff, and I'm by no means an expert in geology. So don't take my word for these things, you know, check them out for yourself. But it doesn't lend itself to, at least if you're trying to address critics, it doesn't lend itself to short videos. So that's why I've done things the way I have. But now I'm gonna take a break from the long videos, and there's a lot of sections that can be clipped out of other videos that people have never seen, that are shorter and kind of encapsulated little bits that I think would be interesting to people. There's a bunch of interviews that I've done for other channels that I've never even posted on my channel, and I didn't want to start posting a bunch of interviews while people were waiting for laboratory analysis. Like, what are you stalling? You know, where's your data? You know, where's
I understand. You know, getting stuck on one topic is very difficult to advance further, like you were doing on MontGo first. Then you got new way of, you know, expressing yourself, and then it's always like this. They just shutting you down, all your inspiration. I mean,
yeah. And my last Unveiling a Titan video, part 6, I worked on that one for a couple months also. And in that one, I was also addressing critics and different things that they had said about my research. And we talked about that the last time we talked. But I went in and I got a 1000x microscope and went out and analyzed the stones that someone claimed I was going to see little tiny pieces of shell and mollusk and, you know, microscopic things that would prove to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that these stones that I was calling petrified bone were actually just, you know, random limestone that had formed in that way, somehow magically, with the Swiss cheese channels going every direction. So I went out with a microscope and I was like, okay, well, this could, you know, go against the research that I've done, and you know, I'll have to be honest about it and show it. And it didn't do that at all. It just confirmed, or didn't confirm what I was claiming, but I actually ended up debunking aspects of the mainstream geological narrative when it comes to how at least that kind of limestone is formed. There are other kinds of limestone where you can see the fragments of the shells, sometimes whole shells, just caked in this lump that has hardened. But that's not what limestone on MontGo is like at all. And so this guy went after me, and I proved him wrong, and he never gave me any kind of an apology, because it was, you know, it becomes very obvious when you compare the photographs of that kind of limestone to what I was presenting.
Yeah, it was like different types of composure. The limestone that the official geology is presenting, and your MontGo composure, it was different, I believe.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. I got distracted by the chat. What did you say?
I'm saying that what you were showing with the microscope was way different from the official geology limestone. That was different.
Yeah, I think sedimentary layers are a thing that actually happen, and maybe they do harden as more and more layers are compressed on top. But to say that that's what, you know, that's what's happening to these stones that I've been calling trabecular bone or cortical compact bone that are part of the mountain MontGo, definitely not. Absolutely, 100% not that. And then the CAT scans that I've had done. That's my next video. When I get it, I'm going to take a break from editing because it's just been too much for too long now. I'll release some other stuff that's already made. Yeah, there you can see the remains of shells.
Yeah, but for example, this one looks like what you were showing.
Yeah, if you search for karst, K-A-R-S-T.
It's called shellstone. We call it shellstone in Russia.
Yeah. The stones here look nothing like that. And also Frank Aon called these heartstones conglomerate cobbles. And conglomerate means like multiple different things squished together with which is called a binder rock. So if you think concrete, or you think cement and different things where they've got lots of different pieces mixed in, well, there's a substrate that all of that is found within. And so if you were to look at these stones with microscopy, which I've also done, coming in a future video, there's nothing about them that makes them look like conglomerate cobbles, because I mean, you can see different elements. You can see crystal, you can see what looks like petrified fat, surprisingly enough, and perhaps even petrified muscle. So sometimes things might actually be what they look like. It's what a novel idea. I guess Occam would agree with that, right? I mean, it's razor.
You should also test this, soil, red soil that you call iron ore. You should also test this one.
I got a really snarky comment yesterday on my channel from somebody who was replying to somebody who wrote to me a year ago that I never replied to. When you got what this is like, when you got a YouTube channel and the way the YouTube feature works for reading comments on your videos, and I have replied, I have not replied, and all I say, it's really easy that things like fall through the cracks and you don't even realize that you haven't responded to them. So this woman had reached out to me and told me about a testing procedure that you can buy online, apparently. And it's not a DNA test, but it will determine whether something is blood or not. So she was talking about that, and she asked me if I would do this kind of analysis and do the process live on camera, which I'll do. I'm not afraid to do that. I don't know how expensive these tests are. I haven't looked into it yet. I need to look into it. But another guy came and he was like, his silence, is proof that he's too afraid to do this thing that you're talking about. And I wrote back to her and I apologized for not having responded. But I mean, his whole tone was accusatory, and you can see. I mean, if I really wanted to hide from her comment, I would have deleted it. Duh, I wouldn't have left it on my channel for other people like him to come along and say, "See, Stellium's afraid to do this simple test." But having said that, it may not even show blood, even if it was blood, because whatever the petrification process is, it's likely to have involved major forces and, some kind of a transmutation of elements, because obviously it's no longer flesh, it's now stone, right? So if there's a transmutation of elements, that might screw up the test in a way that makes it come back as negative for blood when maybe it actually was blood. So I told him that in my comment. I said, I'll do it. And if it comes back positive, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
If it comes back negative, I wouldn't say it's a deal killer for the theory, but it's just one more thing to consider.
I think David Hernandez once asks us, do we know this channel? Do you know this channel?
I've never seen it. No.
Yeah, what I don't like about these channels where, Tartaria everything, because Tartaria wasn't everywhere, right? So, I mean, that's the first suspicious thing about this channel. But the rest, maybe it's a good channel. I don't know. We don't have actually enough time to
I mean, you've been in this longer than anybody when it comes to mud flood and, talking about
I mean,
Tartaria and stuff.
Somewhere, but it wasn't everywhere. I mean, this is what we have to know. And if somebody's giving you the information that Tartaria was everywhere, is definitely a lie. Definitely.
Well, all of the there's so many channels now covering these topics, which is fantastic because more and more people are uncovering things all the time. I gave a couple of shout outs to John Levy and Paul Cook in my last video because, they're boots on the ground. They're discovering all kinds of things. And I know maybe you don't agree with every theory they have. Nobody seems to agree with everybody on anything.
Actually, I didn't see any theories they have. What theories do they have, by the way? Will you let us
know?
It's
just, Paul Cook is going around looking at all kinds of block work that's, in places it absolutely shouldn't be, sizes it shouldn't be, incredible structures that are underground all over the UK. He was living in Malta for several years, so he got to know Malta like the back of his hand.
Malta is a place. I've been saying that since day one. Malta is one of the places where you can find these underground features.
Yeah, well, nobody knows that underground area of Malta better than him, and he's got incredible footage. But then he went back to the UK after living in Malta for a long time, and he started analyzing what he was finding there. And it was unbelievable, the things that he's been finding. His last half a dozen videos are just jaw droppers, all of them. So yeah, it's great that there's lots of channels, but a lot of people get really excited and they think they know everything, and they make a bunch of claims that aren't substantiated, and they don't know what the old guys before them have done.
Yeah, it's just, each and every year somebody comes up with oh, it was an ash. Oh, it was liquefaction. Oh, it was plasma, something, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. You have to explain to everybody, no, it's not melted buildings. No, it's not ash. No, it's not plasma apocalypse. It's all bullshit, guys. It doesn't work this way. Like today, I received a message from the guy who actually talked to one Swiss architect who said, mud flood, it's because people needed ground. Let me read it exactly what he said. That's very interesting. Hi, I talked to various Swiss architects about why the buildings are sunk everywhere. They learned that there was an increase in population and therefore more groundwater was needed, increasing consumption of water. So that's the answer. I write to him. The problem is that they are not sunk. Sinking cracks the walls.
The ground raised.
Sinking cracks the walls. There's no example of any sinking and keeping the building safe. So he says, the problem is that almost impossible to speak with intellectuals in physics or architecture. They are so extremely brainwashed. Even when I show my vids to them, part by part, first and second. So they were also World War II, World War I. They also to destroy evidence of what happened. Velikovsky, collective forgottenness, sea peoples. So
let me ask you a question, Philip, about the melted buildings thing, because you've got all these factions when the buildings cried and all. Because I've seen loads of photos that. The official story is that they were carved out of solid stone with Bronze Age tools, but the structures, it looks melted. And how do you explain that?
Have you seen a melted rock by yourself?
I know what you're talking about, the vitrification, right?
Yeah. Because all the melting creates vitrification. There's no way you can melt a rock without vitrification or glaze effect. There's no way.
But I don't know. I can't cite any videos off the top of my head, but I seem to remember having seen examples of vitrification where it's shiny and it looks like it melted.
Never seen any footage, any video. I've asked to anyone to present any evidence with this vitrification, and nobody does. They just show in random pictures saying everything is melted. When you look up into the inside of those facilities that they claim are not carved, you find out that there's no building inside. There's just 1 or 2 rooms, and that's it. And no walls. Everything is cut on the stone, and that's it. So
how do you?
So if that was a building, it's supposed to have some doors inside, rooms that are now melted windows, and you cannot just, you know, look at the window because it's all melted. Everything inside is like okay, right? Or you have to have this melted stuff also inside that. No, everything is just clean, fancy, shiny, like it was carved, and that's it. Because if something
I'm
was
sure there's a
melted,
bunch of people who would
melted,
disagree, you know, and debate you heatedly.
Yeah,
but
I can come up with debate with anyone. I was just saying a bunch of times, come up with evidence. I have in the chat with
it's not my area of expertise.
1.5 hours of wasted time, no evidence presented, and they believe that they have some, and they will come back with some more. But a year passed already since that last chat. Nobody ever invited me on any more debates. You know,
crickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the leading theory about the origins of mud flood? I would like to present this shortly, just for you guys. Yeah, I have an Instagram where I usually present, you know, actual footage and so on. So it would be fast to go there and check out the actual evidence and what I say about it. Okay. For example, in this exact post where I said some genius promote so-called volcanic ash as an explanation for mud flood, but never knew that volcanic ash is not ash at all. It's like sharp-edged random form particles, unlike clay, which could be found in most of the places where mud flood evidence is present. Clay looks way different than preheated or even melted volcanic ash.
But what about when mixed with water or salt water?
Yeah, you can make volcanic clay, but still we have to find out what's the exact origin of, you know, that. Because if you dry out the clay, you also find out those particles, you know. There's no magical thing that they disappear, you know. So mud flood could be explained in several plausible theories: mining, hydraulic, or drilling, because hydraulic mining is, you know, when you have a huge pump or something and a hose, and you just flow that water with the hydraulic pressure and just mine, and all this mud comes from those hills and mountains that you mine. Drilling can also be found everywhere, you know. Mud is coming from big pressure from underground. Mud volcanoes, which also can be found everywhere, you know, on every continent, every area has a mud volcano. Or dredging. Dredging, as you know, is something they do with lakes and rivers to maintain so the ships can pass. So, you know, dredging is also very simple to explain, how you can dump a bunch of mud in a town in a couple of hours and the whole town will be in mud, you know. So that's kind of one of the most plausible for right now explanations. For example, this could be evidence of hydraulic mining. It looks exactly like hydraulic mining site, but this picture is entering Badlands, 3 Sioux men on horseback, 1905.
But what about the sedimentary layering there? If that was mining waste, why would it have such fine horizontal lines like that?
Yeah, because they use holes, and this is like they have a stand post. Have you seen hydraulic mining by yourself?
Just pictures, and maybe, I mean, just like these hoses, and you know.
Well, if you haven't seen it, then you have to learn it first, because I you know, it's a long way to show it. Just come back on Saturday when I'm gonna have a chat with Mike Ferreira, and I'll ask him to show his photos, because he has a huge collection of his hydraulic mining stuff there. For example, this is also interesting. This is crystals that could be produced by electric mining, which he is proven. Several features. One of these is crystal. The world's largest crystal have been found in Nica, Mexico, located 300 meters underground.
Yeah,
so underground is a whole bunch of stuff there. And for example, this is Rome. people excavate in Rome, and all they do is excavate mud, which consists of 90% clay and tiny rocks, like he was saying in your video,
I
cobblestone.
lived, I lived, I lived there for 2 years. I've stood in that spot many times.
So it's just ancient ruins that end up being buried by some mudflood or dredging procedures. Who knows? Actually, all this stuff got petrified, and they just excavating those ruins, which are now present to the tourists.
So basically, what you're saying is you don't believe that it was all covered up as a result of volcanic ash mixing with moisture in the air, but rather that this was some kind of a release.
Volcanic ash is gray. The mud and clay that we see around our area is yellow and brown, and microscopic detailed research shows it looks different from the volcanic ash. So it can be, and there's no way that we have a huge world where 2/3 of it is water. You have to cover, like, for example, if that's a Yellowstone volcano, I don't know, a huge one, which is like 2 states in diameter.
The calderas.
Yeah, hugest that can cover all the world. Just imagine how much of that ash supposed to cover the territory, right? Just I cannot explain it. We don't have.
I just always thought of it as like, if you, I mean, there's so many volcanoes in the world, and there's underwater volcanoes, and there's mud volcanoes, and my thought was that that if they spewed, tons of ash up into the air and it mixed with water, then you would get mud. But you've apparently debunked that with the microscopy.
Yeah, but if you go to the mud that goes from underground, it takes this clay, exactly this clay that we have. So
someone turned a knob somewhere and it just went from below. Is that your thought? Yeah.
It's just like dredging. It's also from the ground, from below. And volcanic is also preheated. So probably baked mud turns to those sharp edges, like what we see on glazing effect, right? That could help us to understand that some preheating is actually, or boiling something or melting something, changes the structure of those particles, and they can develop different forms, random forms. For example, this is also could be presented by those guys as a melted building, but actually this is not a melted building. This is integration. You
mean they just built it in that spot?
Yes, exactly.
One day somebody was like, I want to build a monastery there.
Yeah, exactly.
His friends were like, sure, that sounds like a great idea.
For example, they show in this quarry, this is a quarry in Vermont, they showing it as an ancient building, right? This is modern days quarry. Look at this one. This is quarry in Russia. Also, this blocks shapes. This is quarry. It's been shut down right now. It's sunk, and it looks like a lake right now. So you can only dive and see that. This is pictures from the 90s. So right now it looks like this. Okay, and this one was on the bottom of it. They were just sewing those blocks.
The more you learn, the weirder this place gets. I swear, it's just like it never ends.
They show in this channel a Tartarian heart, Petra Jordan, Tartarian mudflood, Tartarian empire, Tartarian architecture, and so on. And also melted. It's a hashtag melted buildings over here. So they put it as a melted building. But if you look inside, you'll see this. Does it look like melting building to you now?
I don't know. I'm not qualified to form an opinion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have to always check and cross-check things, and probably somebody has already researched and answered that question. Like your case, when nobody even watched your videos and seen that you answered these questions before many times, and all this content was based on these contradictions that you were solving and finding out that that's not what it is. It's different. And you were listing these coincidences, right? And they didn't even watch your video, man. They probably heard it from somebody else that you like interested in heart-shaped stones and something like this. I don't have any other explanation. How much years you supposed to study to get such level of expertise like this Frank does? How much years?
Well, he's got 4 master's degrees, so that's like 2 years for each one, right? That's 8 plus 4 years for a bachelor's degree. That's another, what is that, 12 years? Not to mention his apprenticeships and whatnot. So who knows? A lot of study.
Yeah, 8 years or 10 years of wasted time. That's what I say.
Well, a lot of it is indoctrination. There's no doubt about that. It's not so easy to just discern fact from fiction.
Yeah, and I wanted to invite you to another channel, my other channel, Yellow Badge, when I want to talk with you about medical issues like this pandemics and stuff. I have a bunch of tomorrow we're gonna have a YouTube chat live here in Russia where we have 2 professors pro vaccination and 2 against vaccination, and that's going to be a huge battle. And I wanted to, interpret what they were saying and present it as a video with you and your comments, because I don't know any other doctor in English-speaking doctor. So it would be nice to hear your comments on that, because you've been posting a bunch of this stuff on COVID on your Facebook. So it would be interesting to know your opinion. Yeah.
I get a little snarky sometimes. I'm not a real fan of technocratic takeovers and tyranny masquerading as health. But as far as I'm no expert in immunology or anything like that, so I suppose I could be on as a support, but not as an expert witness.
No, I know you're not a very big expert, but you still have your opinion, and you're closer to medicine than I am, at least. So,
yeah. Chiropractic is a very unique profession, and it's if you go back to the roots of chiropractic, in many ways, it's a completely different paradigm from what we're all living under now. You think about microbe versus terrain theory. The microbe we're living under the tyranny of the microbe right now, where the little miniature invisible boogeyman is out there that can kill you anytime and kill your whole family in the process. And there are all these claims that are constantly being made by, agencies and governments and things that are, maybe true, maybe not. But ultimately, it's all within this paradigm that is a mechanistic, microbe-based paradigm. And chiropractic, from its origins, was a vitalistic profession. It's recognizing that the whole is more than the sum of its parts, and that that we have an energetic body, we have an emotional body, we have a physical body. All of those things are there simultaneously, and all of us are unique, and all of us have an innate intelligence that is going through our body, that is there from the moment we're born, or the moment we're conceived, to the day we die. And the day we die, the corpse is there, and the body is there, and all the cells and all of the blood and all the muscles and brain and everything, it's all still there, but something else is missing. What's that something else? That something else is the spirit. It's the vital force that is the organizing force that is healing our body through our entire life. So chiropractic is recognizing that intelligence that permeates all life, and also looking to empower the individual and to make them aware of the importance of the terrain, because the terrain is all, as Louis Pasteur supposedly said on his deathbed. Louis Pasteur is the one who gave us the microbe model, and pasteurized milk. That whole idea comes from this idea of killing the microbes, you know. And so the terrain is all. If you want to understand what it means to be a frog and how a frog lives and what the frog's life is like, you're not going to figure that out by cutting open a frog and going, oh, this part fits there and that part fits there. And so, you know, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, oftentimes, where it's really a blend of both paradigms. But we're currently experiencing tyranny of the microbe. And
do you know anything about this graphene technology that they, you know, promote in these days?
Well, it's creepy as heck, and from what I understand, the body isn't able to process it, and it causes an inflammatory response wherever it's found. So if you get a lot of that in your body, it's probably potential, you know, to create autoimmune disease, affect the function of your nervous system, create widespread inflammation. There's a lot that could
Officially,
go wrong.
it was invented by Andrei Geim and Konstantin Novosov, Russians, in 2010. They received Nobel Prize for innovative experiments concerning the two-dimensional material of graphene. Since then, physicists and chemists around the world have begun to study the properties of new material and find new practical applications for it. Graphene is now used to create electronic chips, sensors for gases, membranes for water purification. With the advent of graphene, a new stage in development of medical technologies and bioelectronics began. So right now, I just wrote a short article on that. And also, I like this video. Rob Skiba passed away recently. We know this guy. I haven't been watching his videos, but
rest in peace, Rob.
Yeah, I found this video.
I met him once, and he was a very kind, wonderful man. I told him about the work that I'd done on the mountain, and that was before I'd produced a single video. And he was interested in it, and he immediately gave me his phone number, told me to give him a call anytime. And apparently his first book that he ever wrote was on the subject of Titans. So I asked his friend, Rick Hummer, if he could try and track that down for me, because I'd like to read it. But truly sad that he's gone. And yeah,
well,
sorry,
that's his predictions. In 2012, he was saying.
With regard to a pandemic, again, in true Hegelian style, you know, Hegelian dialectic is where you cause a problem which causes a reaction that you just so happen to have the solution for already ready to go, right? So, okay, just imagine this. Whoever they are, they're responsible for everything, right? Release a really bad flu pandemic of some sort. Well, imagine this. If you don't get the shot that they've got all ready to go for you, no shot or cure means, well, you don't have a job. Somebody mentioned last night, their job requires them to take the flu shot. And if they don't get the flu shot, they lose their job. So we're already seeing kind of a microcosm of that happening right now, a test. Got to take the shot. You know, you can't be a teacher in school, or you can't work at CVS or whatever. You got to take the shot. So they're already making it mandatory for some people. So we've got a little miniature test going on with that. If you don't take it, there's no cure, no job. You end up being quarantined. Oh, you don't want to take the shot. You don't want to take what really I believe is going to be the mark of the beast. Well, fine, you're going to have to be quarantined. Bring you over here. Well, that means you're not going to have any money, which means you won't be able to buy or sell. That seems to be a good explanation to me to explain why they can't buy or sell, but also explain why they beg for death, but death flees from them because they can't die, right? So that's if you don't take the shot, you end up with no job, quarantine, no food, or no food, no buying or selling. But if you do take the shot, well, you have some interesting side effects. And there's going to come a time, especially if we're going through this thing, where some tough decisions may have to be made. When you're looking at your kid that's got this pandemic that they released, and they've got this cure over there, but you heard this stuff, and the Holy Spirit's telling you, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Don't inject your kid with the mark of the beast. We're going to have to work on that strong faith thing and believing God and trusting in him. You know, seriously, I mean, it's just going to get pretty scary in the days ahead.
Long before he did that. I mean, I read a book called Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper back in the late 90s, and I was about 20 at the time. He laid it all out back then. And Alex Jones, he was talking about FEMA camps and all kinds of stuff 20 years ago. Yeah. No, I don't think anybody in the truther community thought they could roll it out in less, in a matter of months, and everyone would just accept it. It's just been mind-boggling.
Yeah, since you've been digging something, you would find out exactly the same information as Rob did. So it's not like a prophecy. I wouldn't say it's prophecy, but it's still, correlates with what we have today right now, and this QR code system and passport system and all this stuff. And by the way, I also find my own video from 2017. Let me just show it. There was a presentation on ecologism. Let's see. So it was like one slide was virus spreading Roman club, Aurelia Pecci. We need a virus to kill immunity of a man, but HIV didn't pass the test and people live with it. Also, around in the end here, let's see. Virus creation is still on. I had this slide and listed all these viruses that were currently present in 2017 as a threat: Ebola, HIV, plague, flu, electromagnetic shock, and a smartphone as a tracking and surveillance device, as psychovirus. What is Mark Zuckerberg is doing? Meta universe, smartphone universe, whatever he was
promoting. Cell phone.
Yeah, yeah. So this is all. It's not prophecy. It's just, if you start to research, you definitely find out all this information about Roman club, about what they're saying about this ecologism religion that they have. They don't even, expect as much population to stay, right? They seen about that in songs like Madonna. It was singing, like saying, like, no, not everybody's gonna, survive. No, not everybody's gonna come to the future, and so on. And like people in the face mask dancing with her, something like this. So that everybody's happy. Like, you're gonna be happy, you're gonna own nothing. All this stuff is, currently visible if you research. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I call them paying attentionists rather than conspiracy theorists, because if you have a little bit of memory and you've been around for a while and have actually been looking into things, you find that the same tricks are being used over and over again, and they're constantly hiding everything in plain sight, telling you exactly what they're going to do well in advance of doing it, and then as they're doing it, they tell you what they're doing. Yeah. And people are like, okay.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't, guys, it wasn't boring, people. We're going to have a next chat with Mike Ferreira on Saturday, where we're going to kind of contradict Mike, but, we're not contradicted it in all aspects, because I was always saying that Mike is researching his area. He's not claiming each and every rock, a fallen titan.
No, nor am I claiming each and every mountain is one. I've watched a fair amount of, I've seen your interviews with Mike, and I've followed his Facebook page for quite a while, and I think he's right about a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
And I think that he's just he's hooked on the one thing, and I think he doesn't see the trees for the forest, the big trees. I think those are very real. I think Hangman 1128's footage speaks for itself. It's very.
By the way, I had a chat with Hangman too, and also I was checking all summer these same rocks that he was showing on his videos and never found a single one. That's what I'm saying, guys. I never found a single one in my area. I don't know.
Well, it's a big realm and very diverse types of terrain, and I don't know, I'm the only guy that has done a forensic analysis on a Titan, and until some other people come along and do what I did somewhere else, there's other mountains here that look like what I think would be Titans, but I'm looking, they don't have caves, that I can explore. There's you can only do so much with a mountain that's covered with a bunch of trees that is a big lump of something. You know, this one is unique because so much is exposed, and what is exposed is explorable. And once I went to explore it, you know, it just completely blew my mind. So if that starts to happen, I mean, most of the people out there researching Titans are just looking at profiles, you know, and you turn it the other way around and look at that, you find a different face. You know, it's a ton of pareidolia out there, and I've from the very first video that I ever made, I was immediately saying, this is not pareidolia. This is way more than that, and it can't be explained away by, oh, it just looks like that, and it looks like an elephant. It may not be an elephant, but I believe 100% that it's a former creature of some sort that was a vertebrate. It had bones, and it wasn't a mollusk or a, you know, a lobster, an exoskeleton. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what they say in intelligence services? They say that there's no coincidence at all. You find in like 20, 30 coincidences in your list, right? So there's no coincidence.
With a mountain, it's 56, I think, now.
Yeah, exactly. So
for people who aren't familiar with the work that I've done, I've got 2 videos called Petrified Titans and Organs, Part 1, the discoveries, and Part 2, the how and why. And those are 25 minutes and 40 minutes, I think. And
the
that
link to Mike's
goes through
in the description.
Yeah, those 2 videos go through almost all of the research up until, say, the last 6-8 months, where I've got a bunch of additional things that can be found in the Unveiling of Titan series, parts 1 through 6, and then all of the videos that I've done that are in the Petrified Organs playlist on my channel. And those are in order that so you can see the discoveries as I made them, and the questions that I was asking, and the ways that I went about trying to determine whether I was just like, you know, on a wild goose chase, or whether there was something to it.
Yeah, if you guys living in Australia or maybe South America, take a look at what Hangman shows as evidence of tree chops, how do you call it, like small particles of the departureless tree. So it looks like actually cedar or you know, something.
Yeah, those kinds of mountains.
The same forms in the forest where I see all this you know, trunks and stumps and so on. So
yeah, those kinds of mountains that he's exploring that look exactly like trees in every aspect. You know, the sap also petrifies and becomes quartz, just like blood and fat and blood plasma in my theories also do. So trees are biological. We know that petrified trees exist. We know that giant trees exist. Think of the sequoias. Now imagine them 10 times larger. We know that gigantism exists. Giants existed. And we know that if you pressurize an environment, that you're going to have, you know, you have a higher oxygen concentration and a greater atmospheric pressure, things grow really, really big. So it's not such a far-fetched idea, especially when you see the plateaus. I know Mike thinks that's all mining. I don't agree with him on some of them. Some of them may be, you know, excavations, and that just is what remains. So it looks like a root structure. But Hangman is showing so much stuff that to me is just, it's WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. And so Titans, trees, volcanoes, mining, I keep going, you know, for all of the above when it comes to this stuff. The answer is E. So keep an open mind, be discerning, and look for evidence, and don't just jump on every bandwagon you see.
Yeah, we just wanted to show you guys that Mike has a bunch of videos, and one of the best to share is this video, BIOGEOLOGY, because it has nice fancy music and it explains most of his points, and I think that's a short example of what you can share about Mike to your friends.
That's like 6 minutes, and it was made by my friend Howard. Shout out to Howard. He's a great investigator, truther. He's got a Facebook page called Raising Awareness, and he's got lots of good stuff on there.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, everyone who joined us today, was in chat, patient, listening to our crybaby story. Yeah, and beware of bomberos. They always somewhere behind and want to steal your research and burn it like they used to.
Bomberos. That's an interesting term because he referred to himself as a firebrand. Is that the same as a bombero?
Yeah, watch my video. You understand what I'm saying. That's why I put this this stuff, because I knew it's all the way. They're bomberos, guys.
On the chopping block. Oh god.
Yeah, because brand.
Yeah. Well, that's why I went open source with all this stuff. I'm like, okay, because I'm not going to try and spend years in academia trying to come out with research that, in order for it to even be considered, people have to consider the idea that major cornerstones of the geological narrative are wrong. So how likely am I going to be able to get that through some kind of a PhD thesis? No way. So I'm not going to spend the money or the time, and so open source. And I've had lots of people. I'm going to start a Telegram page as well, and I've had lots of people sending me examples of these heartstones from all over the world. So that is a repeatable phenomena that is not explained with rolling on floor lumping theory or humiliated clay lump theory.
I don't know if I can say that or not, but Mike's supposed to know what firewall is, which is firebrand. You're supposed to know that.
Well, I found out. I saw the word for the first time today. Firebrand. I've heard of firewall.
Firewall.
And I've heard of brandmän in Swedish is the word for firemen.
You know what's brandmauer? It's firewall also. Brandmauer, firewall. Okay. So brand is what actually,
I'll take your word for it,
is hiding the product from you. That's why it's called brand. Brand is what you see,
right,
but what is not your what you buy actually, because it's a brand. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you later. Bye.
Bye.